It has been nearly 10 years since former Marine and freelance journalist Austin Tice was kidnapped in Syria amid the country's civil war. His parents told media outlets President Biden assured them at a May meeting that his administration would open discussions with the Syrian government over their son's detention. It's not clear if any such talks have been held. Austin's parents, Marc and Debra Tice, have worked tirelessly to bring their son home. They've been doing that for the last decade, and they're joining us now from Houston to talk about their efforts. First of all, thank you so much for taking some time out to speak with us. Have you heard anything at all from the Biden administration since you held that meeting with them back in May?
Well, we have updates with the White House regularly, and so we have heard from them. But the real question is, they don't need to placate us. They don't need to update us. They need to do what we have agreed needs to be done, which is to meet with the Syrians and have an engaged diplomatic discussion. That's what's going to bring Austin home. Keeping us updated is not helpful to Austin.
And so then, as far as you know, what is happening? Have there been any moves to have a conversation to do exactly what you're requesting?
Well, in September of last year, there was a meeting in Damascus.
That was in 2020.
I'm sorry, it was in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been almost 2 years now, which was not followed up on. So what we're really looking for is a sustained discussion. There are a number of things that it would be beneficial for the United States and Syria to talk about together, including Austin. But as far as internal meetings, there have been a number of those. As Deborah said, they keep us updated, but no further discussions directly with the Syrian government that we're aware of.
Right. And, knowing that the president is in the Middle East and that he's decided that he can meet with the Saudis and that he's going to Israel, and thinking about the way they've been treating journalists lately, we think it would be really fabulous if the president had put Syria on his agenda as well. It's time. It's time to re-engage with them.
So what is your reaction to that? The president has been criticized for going to Saudi Arabia to meet with the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who stands accused of ordering the execution of the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. When you know that your son has been detained by the Syrians all this time, and it seems to be on the president's agenda to meet with this ruler, why isn't he also trying to meet with the Syrians?
Thank you, Vlad. Let's ask the president. Let's ask the president who set his agenda. Surely he remembers that he met with us on May 2nd. Surely he remembers that he called for the NSC to meet with the Syrian government and to listen and to find out what they wanted and to work with them. That was his directive to the NSC. So that's a great question, Vlad, and we would love to have an answer to that.
We've been talking a lot about this topic because, as you know, WNBA star Brittany Griner is currently being detained in Russia. Her case has grabbed the national spotlight, the international spotlight. I'm curious about, your response to hearing that President Biden replied to a July 4th letter that she wrote him. And I thought to myself, now the focus is on Russia, and so there are other detainees in Russia that are getting a little more attention that didn't get any attention before, and sometimes it almost feels like, that there needs to be other energy behind the cause before we start to talk about Americans being detained overseas. For a while there, we were talking about Syria, what's happening in Syria, and then we shifted to other international issues, and then suddenly people like your son fall right off of the headlines. Does it feel like that sometimes?
It feels like that a lot.
Yeah. It feels like that a lot. In fact, one of the things that we frequently say is as soon as either or both of us leave Washington, it's kind of like Austin's priority drops down and doesn't pick up again until we go back. So I'd like to believe that our government is capable of doing multiple things at a time. Mm-hmm. There's no reason it has to be an either or with any situation where someone's loved one is being held overseas.
Right.
I'm curious, when's the last time you've spoken to your son?
When was the last time?
We spoke with Austin.
Yeah.
That would be, well, the last exchange that we had with Austin, I had an email exchange with him on August 13th of 2012.
Wow.
And Debra spoke with him
On his birthday.
on his birthday, 3 days
August
prior.
11th, 2012. Yeah.
So is the State Department keeping you up to date on his condition, how he's doing? Do you have any idea how he's doing?
We are really more engaged with the White House. You know, I met with Tony Blinken very shortly after he came into office, and he greenlighted whatever it takes to get Austin home. Near East Affairs has a very anti-Syrian standing, and so that is a huge impediment to the effort to bring Austin home. But most of our engagement is with the White House.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Tice, what can ordinary Americans do to keep the pressure on Washington to bring more attention to the effort to bring Austin home? Because as Anne-Marie points out, I mean, now you've got people like LeBron James and Steph Curry talking about the plight of Brittany Griner. And I understand that having a high-profile celebrity athlete that is being detained unlawfully by the Russians, or at least that's what the State Department says, it can bring attention to the cause, but it doesn't often seem fair, even though I should point out that Brittany Griner, in her letter to the president, talked about all Americans that are being detained abroad, that she would like to see the president do something about that. But what can people do just to keep the pressure up on the White House?
Yeah, and that comment was very gracious of her, and we appreciate that. And, you know, really the same thing that you're talking about these celebrities doing. In fact, just the other day, President Biden, in kind of an impromptu comment to a crowd, said that, you know, keeping an issue in front of him and in front of the administration really makes a difference. So, you know, we would ask people to do what they can to, you know, make known their desire for Austin and others that are detained to come home safely, and for all the effort necessary to be put into it.
Right, and you know, keeping to and continuing to encourage, especially Senator Menendez of the Senate Foreign Policy Committee. Definitely Tony Blinken, remind him that he's greenlighted everything, and maybe he should be asking why Austin isn't home yet. Certainly the president, Jake Sullivan, and it doesn't really have to be pressure as much as encouragement. You know, there's a lot of positive energy behind you getting this done.
Before we let you go, you know, when you mentioned the last time that you communicated with Austin, and you said it was in August of 2012, all I could think of was that was 3 administrations ago. President Obama was president of the United States then, and then so you had, you know, the tail end of President Obama's time in office, and then you had 4 years of President Trump, and now we're in the 2nd year of the Biden administration. So 3 United States presidents have been unable to move the needle on this. Has the reaction from each of those administrations, Obama, Trump, and now Biden, been the same? Yes, they say to you, we're doing everything we can, but nothing has happened?
Well, in fact, the one exception to that has been former President Trump, who spoke at a press conference and mentioned Austin directly and publicly, and actually said that the United States would like to talk with Syria about that situation, about Austin's situation. Other than that, yes, the response has been very much the same. You know, we're looking for a different response. We're looking for action.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, Debra, did you want to say one more thing?
Did you want to say something else?
Well, I mean, I was just going to say, you know, we know now from John Bolton's book that he was running interference and preventing President Trump from engaging with Syria and bringing Austin home. And Bolton is very proud of that. Unfortunately, it's disgusting.
Debra and Marc Tice, thank you so much for speaking with us. Anytime you want to come back, we want to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Anne-Marie.
you so much for inviting us, Vlad and Anne-Marie. We appreciate it.
And we'll
Thank
certainly
you.
make sure to let our White House correspondents know that at the opportune moment that they should press the administration at every chance that they get to learn more information about your son.
Great,
Well,
absolutely.
Well, Steve Portnoy is already our hero because really it was his mention at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that got us the meeting with the president.
Wow.
So CBS has been a real ally for us. Thank you very much.
Steve is great.
He is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.